Hey, advanced procrastinators, welcome back. Let's do a review of study guide chapter number 13 and fast track to a 5. This is actually part 1. There might be a second part coming later. We are dealing with progressivism. So hopefully you've already answered these questions that dealt with chapter 13, part 1. And as we're going, make sure you answer these questions as we go along. So let's get into this. And what we are talking about is in this chapter, the progressive movement. Okay. Now, this is a movement by the government to respond to the will of people by creating laws that regulated business and protected the rights of worker. Finally, the government's going to get involved and help people out. Now, progressivism is an idea that comes out of populism. But the difference is populism was started by farmers who are the first group that wanted government not to be involved and help the people over business, right? So that's the first thing about populism. The thing is they're farmers. Progressivism is going to get in the cities. Now, one of the things that's going to cause progressivism to get in the cities is the Panic of 1893. Now, this is the worst economic depression in the history of the United States other than the Great Depression. And this takes place from 1893 to 1897. So it goes for 5 years. And you look at the unemployment rates, 25% in Pennsylvania, 35% in New York. Almost half of all Michiganders were out of work. And because of this, guys, you want to analyze how does this lead to the progressive movement? And the answer to it is it creates a mood in America that government has to do more than to protect Americans, right? For 40 years, we've had laissez-faire economics where government allowed business to do whatever it wanted to, right? And basically, you have unscrupulous businesses that helped create this panic in the first place, right? Because remember, besides government siding with businesses, most economic depressions are a result of loose business regulation and businesses trying to take advantage maybe of the time. Now, along the line, where does the idea that come from that people want to get involved? And one idea is the social gospel and the idea of Christians getting involved to help. And that's what the social gospel is. It's an extension kind of the Second Great Awakening from the 1830s, but we're talking 1890s, 1900. Okay. So that's same theme of government getting involved to help people still around in America, right? Now, a couple groups that come out of this are the YMCA. You might not have ever thought that, but it's the Young Men's Christian Association and famous the Hull House. This was Jane Addams' settlement house to help women in the Chicago area. It provided daycare and counseling for women. Now, the next thing that helped to give progressivism or the movement to have government get more involved is a group of journalists called muckrakers, and they expose problems in society. Muck is kind of like mud, and a rake, you go through it. So what these reporters did is they went through the mud. Now you're going to want to know who some of these reporters are. You're going to want to know Jacob Riss and how the other half lives, detailing poverty in the city. So if you look at those images up above there, right, those images were finally broadcasted or available to people in newspapers to see what life looked like in the poorer parts of the United States. Upton Sinclair obviously did the jungle, which we'll talk about later, about the filthy conditions in the meat industry. And Ida Tarbell in the upper right-hand corner, no, that's not her image, but she was the reporter who exposed Rockefeller's use of unfair business practices to control oil production in the United States. Up until that point, a lot of people had looked at Rockefeller as being a hero of American capitalism. And in this expose, it actually showed that he used a lot of criminal tactics in order to become wealthy. Now, why are journalists essential to progressivism becoming a national political trend? Now, this is important. Now, the answer is it goes along the same line of abolitionism and William Lloyd Garrison's The Liberator. Americans never knew that there was a problem in the United States until they were exposed to this. Remember, before the Panic of 1893, right, a lot of Americans were still doing very, very well. The farmers, yeah, they were making some money. They were being ripped off, but middle class Americans were doing rather well. It's immigrants and the poor classes that are stuck in the factories working in the worst jobs, right? So Americans didn't know how bad life was for those people. So these journalists tell Americans that there is a problem where business and corporations are taking advantage of their wealth and power. Now, another example of something that tells people, look, we have to do something is a triangle shirtwaist fire in the upper left-hand corner, right? That was on the 9th and 10th floor of the building on the left there, right? And a fire breaks out and 150 women die because there's no building or work codes, right? The doors were locked from the outside to keep the girls from leaving early. So when the fire breaks out, the girls could not get out of the building. So a lot of them ended up jumping, seeing the upper left-hand corner and the bottom left-hand corner, right? Jumping out of the building rather than die in the flames. Now, right, so this leads to building codes and inspections ensure, yes, safe working conditions. The idea comes up that nobody should die because they go to work. And we now have safety regulations today because of it. Now, President Theodore Roosevelt, okay, he is the first progressive president. When he becomes president in 1901, he is the first president that's going to actually get involved in trying to make these changes that progressives want, right? And one of those is his interference in the anthracite coal mine strike, right? Now, coal miners had arguably the worst lives in America at this time. If you live past 35 years old, if you're a coal miner, then congratulations, you had a long and successful life, right? So the coal miners went on strike, demanding higher pay and safe working conditions. Now, Roosevelt gets involved in the strike because he felt the coal strike was hurting ordinary Americans. The idea was winter was coming, and if people in the East Coast did not get their coal to heat their homes, they would die. They would freeze to death. So the president said, I can't be laissez faire when people's lives in the United States are on the line. And, right, so what ends up happening here is you have a monumental shift, right, because TR sides with the workers. And what is the monumental shift that's happened here with Teddy Roosevelt as president of the United States? And the answer is, this is the first time the federal government, or at the same time, the president of the United States, sides with the workers to get the deal done. First time the president sides with workers. In the Pullman Strike in the 1890s, President Cleveland sided with George Pullman and sent the army in to attack the strikers. In this case, just 10 years later, President Roosevelt is siding with the workers. So this is the first time the government, right, isn't saying, oh, we're laissez-faire when it deals with the public, or is not actively aiding corporations. Now, a couple other laws that laws, acts that Roosevelt passes is the Hepburn Act. This allows the federal government to regulate the railroads, right, which is going to prevent the long and short haul routes that were overcharging farmers, and the Pure Food and Drug Act, which basically gave the government the power to regulate the meat, food, and drugs in the United States. Now, can you identify? You remember the book that caused the public clamor for the government to get involved and regulate the food processing industry? And that book is The Jungle, Upton Sinclair. And this book exposed the dirty conditions of the meat packing industry, right? And some items that can be found in the meat include dead rats, rope ends, splinters, and feces, right? Now, why was it important where everybody actually, even wealthy national corporations, right? Ordinary Americans, everybody was like, whoa, hey, government can't be laissez-faire when it comes to food. Why? What is it about food that makes it a little bit different and the drug industry? The answer here is basically all people eat. And if you eat the wrong food, you can die. So, John Rockefeller to the newest Irish immigrant in America, they're basically eating the same meat from the same companies because there's monopolies. There's only a couple meat packing trusts in the United. There's one meat packing trust in the United States. Okay, so the idea here is, the government needs to get involved because if you eat the wrong meat, you die. Now, progressivism actually comes to a success in 1912. So we have Theodore Roosevelt, who's the first progressive president. Okay. And in 1912, we have four candidates running for president. We have on the far right there, Eugene Debs, the Socialist Party. And the Socialists actually want government to control industry, which is not really an American thing. We like corporations to control things with some rules or no rules. And that's laissez-faire. But Eugene Debs is running as a socialist, government control of the industry, and he receives 1 million votes. That's a pretty solid number for that time. The Republicans nominate Howard Taft because Roosevelt has stepped down as president of the United States and basically said as a successor, Howard Taft will continue my ideas. Roosevelt runs as a third political party called the Bull Moose Party, or you can see up on top the Progressive Party, right? And his idea is the new nationalism, regulation of monopolies, minimum wage, women's suffrage, and 8-hour day. What's really important about Roosevelt's ideas is these ideas, minimum wage, women's suffrage, 8-hour day, all become laws eventually. Okay, and this is 1912, and women don't get the right to vote until 1919. And the Democrats nominate Woodrow Wilson, who is also a progressive. And his idea is he doesn't want to regulate the monopolies. He believes that we should break up the monopolies. And what you need to understand here is remember this. Besides there being a socialist party, which only got 1 million votes, right? There are 3 political parties running for president rather than the standard Republican and Democrat. What happened for there to be 3 political parties? And the answer here is Theodore Roosevelt stepped down after 2 terms, right? And he could have ran for re-election again. And he said that William Taft would be my successor. But William Taft started running things differently than how Roosevelt wanted to. So Roosevelt decided to run for the nomination for the Republican Party. And he actually won in every state that had a primary, but not every state had a primary. But the Republicans did not support how far Roosevelt wanted to take the reforms. That was too much, as well as the fact that Taft was already president, and the Republicans were thinking, hey, we don't need change. We already are in office. We don't need to put someone different in. And what ends up happening is Roosevelt and Taft, who are both essentially Republicans, just Roosevelt's a more progressive Republican, right? They split the Republican vote, and Wilson's elected president, and you have the second Democratic president of the United States since Abraham Lincoln. So, what does Woodrow Wilson do? Even though I said Teddy Roosevelt's the first progressive president, Woodrow Wilson's actually the progressive president that does even more than Roosevelt does. He passes the Underwood tariff. Now, what this did is it lowered the tariff significantly. Now, this allowed European companies to sell in the U.S., forcing monopolies to offer fair prices. And what you need to understand is how is lowering the tariff meant to impact and regulate monopolies? How does this hurt monopolies? Well, basically, right, trusts, right, we're charging the prices just under where the tariff was, right? Well, now if the tariff's lowered, this forces the trust to offer more fair prices to stay competitive with the European products. So it's bringing in some kind of competition from the American trust. Also, now that there's actually less money for the tariff, because the government depended on tariffs to raise revenue. That's how the government got its money back then. By lowering the tariff, how is the government going to raise revenue to do the essential things it needs to do, like provide for defense of the nation? And that's going to be income tax. The government is going to pass income tax. It's going to be the 16th Amendment. So in America, there never was an income tax before, right? And it's a graduated income tax, as you can see in the chart in the top. The less you make, the lower percentage you pay. The more you make, the higher the percentage that you pay. Wilson also passes the Clayton Antitrust Act. Now, what's this importance? Well, this is the Clayton Antitrust Act. It breaks up monopolies. You can drop the mic. There are no more monopolies in the United States today. And to explain the impact, I just said it. This gives the government real regulating power, right? To ensure businesses do not gain too much power at the expense of the people. And there are no more monopolies today. A good question about this that a lot of people think about is Facebook. Should Facebook be broken up into smaller entities? Even though Mark Zuckerberg started and invented a whole new way for people to social network, right? Does Facebook have too much power? Well, the Clayton Antitrust Act gives the government the power to actually take Facebook and break it up into 5 baby Facebooks if it wants to, if the government feels that Facebook has too much power in the United States. And that all comes from Woodrow Wilson. And lastly, the Federal Reserve, another one passed by Woodrow Wilson. If you look at a dollar note, right, at the very top, it says a Federal Reserve note. This is the national bank that creates the money. Okay, so this is the bank that we have today that helps to regulate our economy, and ensures that the dollar is valuable and the economy runs smoothly. Because as we know now, the U.S. dollar is not backed by gold or silver; it's backed just by the promise that America will be a successful nation and that people want dollars because they know dollars will be valuable. And it's the Federal Reserve's job to make sure the dollar stays valuable as a currency. People are willing to trade in exchange for goods and services. Right. Now, lastly, the last impact of the progressive movement is during the progressive movement, there are 4 amendments to the Constitution that are passed. This is rather incredible because there's only been 17 amendments to the Constitution since the Constitution was originally written with the first 10 amendments, right? And 4 come from this period of the progressive era. So you want to know these 4 amendments. They include the 16th Amendment, a graduated income tax where the rich pay a higher percentage. You can remember that because when you turn 16, you can drive. And when you drive, you need to pay for gas, and you need a job, and you get a job, and all of a sudden you get your paycheck and you go, wow, where did my money go? Went to income tax. The 17th Amendment is the direct election of senators. Remember, the Senate before this was elected by state governments, and these state governments were oftentimes corrupt or owned by the robber barons. An example was Leland Stanford in California, all the railroads, and he was a senator from California because he controlled the California state government, right? Now senators will be voted on by the people. The 18th Amendment is prohibition of alcohol. Yes, it is progressives that felt that people would live better lives if they did not drink, and it was progressives that helped to get an amendment passed. That is the only amendment in American history that ever limited someone's ability to do something. It limited a person's right. And the 19th Amendment, the progressives passed women's suffrage in 1919, and this finally gives women the right to vote. So these four amendments are all results of the progressive movement. All right. And with that, thank you very much, guys, and have a good day.